guys, so this is my Arduino code for the circuit I just showed you guys. So the first step it is doing call out the code for servo motor since the servo code is not included into the Arduino originally, so you have to call in a library for it. After that, I initialize all of my code, initialize all my variables for motors, servos, and sensors, and all the numbers associated with them are the pin numbers on which the Arduino is going to be attached to, on which the motors and all the stuff going to be attached to the Arduino. After that, we enter void setup. The first four stack of code is pin mode, basically declaring all the pins, declaring all the variables as pins. The first four are for motors, input 1, motor 1, and etc. etc. All of them are output because they're sending out the current to start the motor. After that, next four stack are for sensors. Echo sensor 1 and 2 are inputs because they're going to be reading in the current that they receive. Trig sensor 1 and 2 are outputs because they're going to be sending out the current to turn on the sensors. After that, the servo.attach it builds our servo motor variable earlier into a servo variable so we can use it as a servo motor. After that, the digital writes do make trig sensor 1 and 2 into low, so the sensor 1 and 2 are off. After that, I declare serial.begin 9600 because I'm going to be using the serial motor, as you're going to see later. After that, we enter while loop. While loop forward. For the first line of code is forward. Forward is basically another class like void loop and void setup, but it is void forward. In that, we turn on trig sensor 1 for 10 microseconds, and whatever the impulses we get, whatever the current we get, we convert it into distance measured in inches, and we print it on the serial motor. As you can see, serial.print in println. And if distance sensor 1 is greater than 3, the motors are going to start turning. The whiteboard eraser is going to start moving. What distance sensor 1 really means is that the sensor doesn't sense any object in a radius of 3 inches from it. So if it doesn't sense an object less than 3 inches or senses an object more than 3 inches away from it, the motors start turning. If it doesn't, there's an else code for it on which all the input motors are shut down. The motor is shut down. After that, it comes out of the forward loop and goes back into loop. Then goes into while loop. While loop is kind of like the if statement. It checks if a statement inside of it is true. If it is true, the while loop is going to keep doing whatever the code is inside of it until the statement is falsified. And inside the while loop it is forward, so it's going to go back into it, turn on the sensor, get a new distance sensor value, and if it's still greater than 3, the motor are still going to keep going and going. So what it's going to do is going to come out, go while, and it's going to check if distance sensor 1 is greater than 3. It is. It's going to go back to forward. It's going to keep doing until it isn't. So it means the whiteboard eraser has reached a place where it senses an object less than 3 inches away from it. After that, the motor is shut down. It comes out of the while loop because now the statement is falsified. Delays for 4 milliseconds. After that, it goes into backwards. What backwards does is very similar to it. It turns on the second sensors for 10 microseconds, gets a distance value, distance sensor 2, and if it's greater than 3 inches, the motor are going to start turning, but in reverse direction. So whiteboard is going to move in the reverse direction, and after that, it's going to come out, go into while loop, go back into the backwards loop, and keep doing it as it was doing with the forward loop, but it's going to keep going backwards until it senses something less than 3 inches away from it, on which the motor shut down, comes out of the while loop, comes out of the void loop, and goes back in. So basically what's happening is the whiteboard eraser is going back and forth,